everyone, my name is Alicia Jackson, licensed professional counselor, and welcome to my channel. Today we are reviewing Married at First Sight, Season 17, Episode 3. If you are returning, please feel free to like the video and of course subscribe to the channel. Now, here at this channel, we do reviews a little different, right? So we, instead of coming from a place, right, of potentially like judgment or criticizing, or even jumping to conclusions around what's happening with these couples, we get a little curious. Why? Because we are using a model, as I'm an internal family systems therapist, and so we get a little curious about what could be motivating these behaviors, these thoughts, these feelings that we're seeing, so that we can learn a little bit more about them and potentially learn a little bit about ourselves too in the process. Now, let's get started. Now, first, we have Claire and Cameron, and the episode starts, of course, with them joining back, starting at the beginning of the ceremony, and they're getting married. Now, they first see each other, and there is a bit of a height difference, but other than that, they really seem to have a really nice attraction and connection just from the beginning. Cameron, he has this, there's observing him, right? There's this part of him that's very warm. He's like very intentional to meet her parents and get dad's name, because dad was like about to go to a seat. He's like, no, what's your name? Like, to really connect with them. It felt really warm and engaging, right? And at the same time, Cameron also has a part of him that is very humorous, like laughs. And it seems to be like the role he's using, as he talks about it later in the episode, like he sees that Claire is a bit nervous, and so he's like using this part of him to help put her at ease, which also lets me know that potentially he also uses it for him to put him at ease, right? And so he does have this really humorous side of him. His friends also tend to seem to have that, as well as when they describe each other, right? The friends and family describing their person, right, to their spouse or their future spouse. There's so much sarcasm in this letter, describing Cameron, and how, he's really not that interesting. He's just a tall guy with an accent, and he likes to ride bikes. Like, that's all you're getting, right? And the humor in it, I feel, really is like a great setup for Claire to understand Cameron, because he definitely leans in and uses the humor, and at the same time, it's a nice balance of sincerity, to where, there's not that concern or worry like, oh, are we just going to get jokes? Like, is that all we're going to get with Cameron? And two, this was really shown in his vows, that this balance of sincerity and humor, right? It really helped Claire to feel at ease. She was like, whew, okay, you're funny. You're like, at least I'm going to have someone to help laugh through life with. And that's a beautiful, beautiful trait, a beautiful quality. And it's glad that she, right, appreciates that. So she's learning, because she's a really big family person. Her family also talk about how they are a bit protective and loud. You did see a little like trepidation inside of Cameron around that. And two, she really wants to lean in and learn more about him. His family isn't there. They're in New Zealand. But he did say that he wants them to go back to New Zealand after this process and get remarried. And she's really excited about that. She's like, I really want to learn more and get to know more. She talked about and gave him a heads up that she does have very protective sisters. With them being quadruplets, they're very, very connected. It seems like, too, there may be some interesting attachment styles happening in this family, especially when the sister was talking about it in the last episode, right, around her concerns. And, there's a lot of feeling attached to like this potential detachment, right? Because Claire's going to be connecting with Cameron now, and that's going to completely shift her relationship with her siblings. And so it'll be interesting, right, to see how that dynamic plays out. But you can see that Cameron is a bit nervous around these protective sisters, like, right, these protective sisters. He's really wanting as we see later on in the episode, and we talk about a little later. He wants their approval. He wants to ease. There's this part of him that wants to put people at ease. Hey, I'm okay. I'm a good guy. Like I got this. We got this, right? Like there is this part of him that's just like, whew. And it's interesting too to know, like Cameron, right? He's this risk taker, and at the same time, he's like, we got this, right? So it's so interesting. Us as humans, we're very complex. We have all these parts of us and different aspects of our personality that are definitely connected to our experiences and things that we have learned and observed and taken in at various ages. And so it's just interesting to learn these couples and observe them. And so they both discuss their hobbies and how they're different hobbies. She's like, hey, I don't really bike like that. I exercise though. I work out. And so he's like, hey, yeah, like we don't have to have the same hobbies. That's okay. Like there's no pressure. We can have our different hobbies. And they both talked about how they appreciate that they're that they one have hobbies, that both of them have hobbies, and two, that they can still keep their identity and still join at the same time. And it'll be great to see this is the fun part, right, of marriage, of like the things that you really enjoy together, but also the things that you still like want to do on your own, and that's allowed, right? And really it's great to have that balance, because you don't want to have, man, this part of you that loves biking, like say Cameron, right, loves biking, but doesn't do it because, well, Claire doesn't bike. We'll just work out at the gym with her. Well, then that part of you that likes biking, it's gonna be like, hey, like what's happening? We like to do this. It's such a huge passion, and so to keep your identity, keep the things that really are meaningful to you, to have that balance of life, of not just like, hey, you don't like biking, well, we're not going to do anything together, right? But having that balance of honoring what you like and also things that could help you and your spouse join together. Also, one thing that I did observe, Cameron, we talked about how he does have the part of him that uses humor to put people at ease or to put himself at ease. It also, there is some like self-deprecating jokes that I'm noticing a lot of. And so that lends me to believe that potentially there are some insecurities that he has, which we all have, right? There's some insecurities that he has and is making light of, right? Like, hey, and that tends to happen when you're meeting people, right? You have these edges around, oh, are they gonna accept me, because I'm tall, right? Are they gonna accept me because like I love chocolate and I'm not sharing, right? All of these are things he described about himself, but like, are you going to accept all of these things? So I'll make light of them and joke like, yeah, can you believe it, right? This is me. And there's a question of, ooh, are you going to accept me the way I am? And so I really, encourage Cameron, as he's seeing this to do, like, sitting with the parts of us that we're concerned about. Ooh, are you going to be okay with this? Seeing like, ooh, are we okay with those parts of us? Are we okay that we do X, Y, and Z? And also too, are we okay with the fact that yes, some people may not be okay with that, and that's okay too, right? So it makes me believe that potentially like there may be some rejection he's experienced in the past for being a certain way or showing up in a certain way. And maybe this is the way that he's learned to kind of protect himself from that. And we all have those ways, right? That we protect ourselves from potential rejection and abandonment. We want people to like us. We want people to accept us. We want to keep them around. We don't, right? There's these fears. There's these fears around, if they don't accept me, that will mean this. And there's even like meaning, right, that we attach to it. So it was interesting to see these self-deprecating jokes, right? Because that lets us know there's more happening underneath there. There's more happening potentially underneath there. So during the toast, her sister is giving a toast around like, you only get one soulmate, and yeah, we met each other in the womb. And I said, oh no, okay. There's parts of me that are really concerned. I really feel and sense to even with the emotion that the sister's bringing. Like, there's a part of her that's really concerned about losing this connection or it changing. She's really concerned around it. And my heart goes out to her. I'm also too curious about what she fears or believes is going to happen. I wonder what type of role sister plays for her. When there's a fear like this, there's like a role, right? There's a dependency there that's happening. And so because Claire is a therapist, right? There's a part of me that's like, I wonder if this is like she's playing this like nurturing role for her, if she's playing like an emotional safety role, like what role is she playing in her sister's life, that there is like this fear and concern around, like, oh no, this person is here, so I need to make sure I let everyone know my role in her life. Of course, your siblings and you in your space in your siblings' life is very important, and at the same time, soulmate, that usually is that title. People have their thoughts and beliefs around the word soulmate, but usually that title is regarding like a romantic partner. That's usually where that title is reserved for, not necessarily a sibling, but you can definitely have like a huge connection and all of that. But I'm curious around what role, like what's happening in this attachment between them two, and her concern around Cameron's presence and what she may be losing as her sister joins with Cameron. She also spoke about these high expectations she has for him. And I want to know more, right? I want to know more about that. That's really interesting. Like, of course, you want your sibling to be connected with someone who is high quality, is going to treat them with respect, who's going to value them, all of those things. And there's something else in there. There's like another energy that's higher than that, right? It's like, I have expectations of you. Like, there's you better, right? There's like a you better do this. And Cameron, he has a choice on how he shows up in his marriage, and that's between him and Claire, not necessarily Claire's sister, right? And so there's like this you better do this for my sister in there. And that seems like a layer of protection, right? That she has around something. How was she hurt in the past in a relationship? Is she trying to make sure her sister doesn't get hurt the same way she did? There's something there. And so I'm hoping the sister too can see this and have some more insight around how she's showing up too, because sometimes we're not aware. Most times, actually, we're not aware the way our nervous systems are set up. When we're in protective mode or defensive mode, we don't really know how we're looking and behaving. And so maybe this can help her see, like, ooh, that was intense. Like, did I really mean that? Or maybe that's part of her maybe like, yeah, I did mean that, and I'll say it again, right? So we'll see. But hopefully she'll be able to see that to get more insight for her. Later in the reception, Cameron is talking to her sisters, and he's working the charm, man. He has this part of him that's like really charming. He's like, hey, your mother loves me. No, like, she really loves me. And it was cute to see. I don't know if you saw the footage of them two dancing, which I thought was absolutely adorable. And he's like, yeah, and I've done well, academically, like. And one of her sisters tried to like joke with him, like, hey, dust your shoulders. And he was like, what? I have something on my shoulders. And he's like, oh, yeah, I do well in those areas, right? There's this part of him that's really trying to put them at ease, like, hey, I got this. And I don't know if there's a part of him that may be like concerned about conflict. And so he's like, hey, everything's going to be okay, right? That may be where that part is really working to protect him in that way. Like, I don't want to be in conflict. I don't want them to worry. I don't want them to come to my wife with concerns. I want to let them know we got this, right? And they are not convinced, which I wouldn't expect them to be convinced. But, that's the intent. He doesn't realize that they have parts of them that are making sure their sister's going to be okay. And it really, like I said, it really makes me curious about what role she plays in this family. What is her role, right? What does she do? Is she the person that makes sure everyone's okay? Does she hold it together? Is she the one who provides the emotional support? Is she the confidant? Like, what role does she play in the family? Because these sisters are not playing around. Now, what was also very cute was Cameron and Claire sitting with her grandmother. Oh my goodness, probably the most adorable scene of the whole episode. She said, "You guys are sitting with me because I'm the oldest one here." And they said, "No, the wisest one." The wisest one here. And so she's been married, or had a marriage for over 60 years. She's like 60 something, which, I mean, if you've been married that long, I get that. And wanting some advice. Her advice was a bit interesting. She said, to not argue. And I said, okay, I want to hear more. Because there's definitely a part of me that believes that conflict is very healthy. And that healthy conflict is really important in talking about issues, not avoiding them, not putting them under the rug, not throwing them to the side, but really to talk about them is really important. She talked about one-upping, which I hashtag support this message of the one-upping. Like, oh, you came home late. Well, oh, you didn't have work. You didn't have dinner on time. And so, like, the one-upping instead of addressing the concern. Now, normally when that's happening, that's either a part of us that's maybe trying to avoid the issue, trying to avoid the shame of, ooh, I did something bad that hurt my spouse, or there's like hurt that's unresolved there. And so maybe anger steps in, right? Anger can be a really great protector of the parts of us that are hurt. And it's like, oh, you're mad about that, but you did this. So then nothing gets resolved because those defensive protectors, those parts of us that are fighting, for our worth, for our value, to be a good person, to be seen as a good person, are in the way of communication and understanding, right? Now she said, hey, just, instead of focusing on your partner's imperfections, just focus on the things that they do well. And I'll say this, that I feel like we can do both. We can focus on the beautiful things that our partners or your partners do for you in your relationship, in your marriage, in your your committed partnership. You can focus on those things, and you can also talk about the ways that you can grow together, right? It's to where it's not you do this, you do that, but hey, this is something that there's a concern for the both of us, and how can we work together to help this improve? That is what healthy conflict looks like, where it's not the blame game, but this is an issue for the both of us. We're both having this concern, or this issue is affecting both of us. How can we work to resolve it? What can we both do to make it work? But this is really great to see. It's really great to see this nice start with Claire and Cameron. It feels like, like, I don't know if it's Cameron's humor, but like, oh, it's even like kind of grounding to me. I'm like, okay. And I did see the statistics that of the people who filled out the survey of MAFS watchers, that they believe that this couple is most likely to stay married after decision day. So we shall see, right? Like I always say, we shall see. Next, we have Becca and Austin. Now, it was cute for us to see Becca struggle. Man, she was struggling. In the wedding picture, she was like, all right, everybody put your hands in your pockets. It was hilarious to see her really trying to keep her inner photographer part, like to let that one know, like, hey, we don't have to work today. This is our wedding, and allowing the photographer to do their job, right? So she had to work to relinquish that control and be in the moment for herself. They keep learning so much more about themselves. They're both allergic to cats, which was hilarious. It seems like every day we keep learning more and more of the things that they have in common. It's like, oh my goodness, it's like we married ourselves. Like, so it's cute to see. There's not a whole lot of interaction that we're seeing. Like, they didn't get a lot of screen time this episode, which makes me believe, like, I wonder how much real conversation they're having. I know it's the reception, so there may not be like moments to do that. They're both pretty outgoing, fun people, so a reception is where like those parts of them get to shine, and they're like, hey, and fun loving and dancing and taking pictures and making out as Becca recommends. And so there's not a lot of connection happening so much at the wedding reception as maybe the other couples having more conversation, getting to know each other a little bit more. So hopefully we will see more of that in episodes to come. As they are talking with each other's bridal parties, they both talked about, well, first Austin, he's like just so grateful that they have all these things in common, because he's like, oh, this makes it so much easier. I'm so glad that we have all these things in common. Becca, she was concerned about his sincerity, concerned about the person that she would be married to would not go into this for the right reasons, like following, for followers or to get screen time, whatever, right? That past people may have, their ulterior motives that they may have had. She's just grateful that, when she walked down the aisle, that he had tears. That really let her know, like, oh, he's sincere. He's genuine. He means this. And even his friends, like, hey, he's the most genuine person we know. Like, if something's not okay, he will tell you. And she's like, oh, great, because I love when people are direct. That is my jam. I don't really like it when people don't speak for the things that they need. She said, I'm a very direct person, and I'm not passive aggressive. She said, I'm nice about it, but I like to say things directly. I don't know how to do anything else. So we know this is a part, right? It's a part of her that communicates directly, right? And it prefers that. And so I'm curious, like, oh, has she experienced things or at times when people communicated indirectly to her or weren't honest, weren't upfront? And so, right, this is the protection around that part of her. Like, oh, we're going to do this. We're going to make sure that we communicate directly. And her friends are with him and telling him pretty much the same thing. She's like, make sure that you communicate. Make sure you tell her how you feel. She gets really anxious when she doesn't know, right? So, okay, that lets us know, all right, that right there. She gets really anxious when she doesn't know your thoughts, your feelings, okay? So there's a part of her that's concerned about concealing information. There's some hurt that happened with concealing information, and that's where this protection is around. The part of her that gets anxious when they don't know, and the part of her that communicates very directly what she's feeling and thinking, right? That's protecting the part of her that was hurt around concealing information, passive aggressive communication, or indirect communication. There was some wounding that happened previously around that. That's what it seems like. And so they asked them this question, like they do every season, about physical intimacy. Is it going to happen? It's the wedding night. Is it going to happen? And so Austin says, hey, I would just love for us to stay up and keep talking and play, Nintendo 64 all night. That's what would feel right for me, but it's whatever she wants. Now she is still healing from a surgery, so she's saying, we can snuggle and cuddle, but I don't feel like going to that level is something that I'm physically prepared for. Now they did speak to, they meaning her bridal party, spoke to Austin about her being positive, like, and open with physical intimacy. Like, that's something that she is a champion for. She's even helped them with doing that. He's like, so just know you're buckle up, you're in for a ride. Now, at the after party, he said that he was okay with this. He should have told the part of him that was showing with his facial expressions, because those facial expressions said something different. His groomsmen did say that he tends to just kind of be more relaxed in that area and taking his time. I'm trying to remember, because I believe that he has potentially some like religious beliefs, some strong religious beliefs. I believe that I remember that maybe from the first episode. So I'm wondering if that's playing a role in this. But it should be interesting. I'm sure with her health, right, condition where it currently is right now, and his preference to take things slow, that this will be like a time where it matches up. And I'm curious how this will flow as they try to learn each other's temperature in the area of physical intimacy in the bedroom, like what that will look like moving forward for them. Becca also meets Austin's roommate, and she's like, just so you know, he wears pajamas all the time. He starts projects but doesn't finish them, so be sure to tell him about that, or keep on him. And the one thing you don't have to worry about is him taking out the trash. She was like, yes, right. So she's like, yeah, I'm hearing that he doesn't finish projects. All right, so he has really big ideas, but a part of him like stops in the middle of them, and just like, hey, all right, let's move on to the next thing. And so it doesn't seem like that's something that rattles Becca, and she's taking it in stride. So hopefully we'll see more footage in future episodes, like I stated, on how they're connecting, how they're really connecting. We know that like their extrovert energy, or the parts of them that have that energy, fun loving parts, are like enjoying each other, and at the same time want to see, right, if in the intimate spaces, and the more grounded spaces of them, how those parts of them connect with each other. So, as I always say, we shall see. Next, we have Lauren and Orion. Now, they're at their reception, having a great time. Their first impressions, they discussed those, and Orion stated that he was very pleasantly pleased around, right, seeing her presentation. He's like, she's gorgeous, right? Now, Lauren did not speak around her attraction to Orion, and I don't know if Lauren's aware, right? So she has this part of her that's very grounded, and even like an intellectual kind of energy, and her facial expressions sometimes say something very different than what she's naming, right? So like in that area, there was like some silent energy, but her face was saying like, okay, I wish I could say the same. Like, I don't know. There's something there that hasn't been communicated, or she's still just like maybe allowing herself to warm up. I don't know. But the facial expressions are potentially communicating that not fully there in the attraction department, right? An after party, she said, I came in there and I saw, she thought that the attendants were white, and then she got down to the altar, and she's like, oh, he's not white, right? So this is a new thing. She said she's never dated outside of her race. He said, I've never dated people in my race. And so they have this, they're both in new territory. Opposite territory, but new territory. So hopefully there'll be some grace in that area for them as they're learning each other. And Lauren spoke to their first dance, and she said that she prayed for just someone that she could dance with in the kitchen as they were cooking dinner. And she said, their first dance really gave her that idea, like, ooh, this could be a possibility. And she said that it was awkward, though. She did name that. She didn't say why it was awkward. Now, of course, it's their first time dancing with each other. It could just be that, right? It doesn't have to be something super deep. And at the same time, I'm curious about what was awkward about it. She didn't really name that per se. So it seems like while Lauren does have this part of her that is very clear and direct around what she's feeling and thinking, she also has a part of her that is more reserved and keeps some things close to the vest. All right, so we're noticing that. We learned too that Lauren's dad, he is someone that isn't as open as her mom. Lauren described her mother as this like very non-judgmental person. She said that she had a wild night. She'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, how did that go, right? And be open and hearing her before, like, what did you, instead of coming with the judgment. Like Lauren's dad has a part of him that we notice and meet later on in the episode, that comes up and states his opinion about X, Y, and Z, this behavior. And it seems like Lauren's mom she had the ability to hear and receive what you were saying and reserve the judgment, to reserve it and just take it in, which can be really helpful, because oftentimes when you're talking about, oh, this happened, or oh, I'm going to do this, there's some excitement, right? That's coming. That part of you is excited. And then when you're met with the person's reaction to what you're telling them, it kind of feels like a killjoy sometimes, right? And so it seems like potentially Dad may have that in him, and it's usually out of a place of concern and care, usually, not speaking for every situation, but I'm seeing here with Lauren's father, that's where it seems to really be coming from. She did say that she's like really missing her therapist, speaking to her mom, and that lets us know what type of role her mom played. Like, she was an emotional support, she was a confidant, and that's a huge role to be missing in your life. All right, that's a huge role to be missing in your life. Orion spoke to that he is living with his mom. He's in school, taking some classes for real estate, it seems, and he's been saving money. And so Lauren says that she's okay with it. He's like, yeah, my bridesmaids, my friends asked me this question. I said, hey, it depends on how he's using the time, if he's using it wisely. And she's like, so I understand. And, my mom, since after she passed and my sister moved out, I'm like, what are you rushing for? Stay with them. And I want to stay with them, right? So there's the part of her that's aligning with Orion is speaking, but her facial expression is saying more. It's giving us more information. It's not to say that she doesn't really feel that way. She probably really feels the way that she's saying. And at the same time, there's a part of her that's really concerned about the fact that he still lives with mom. Right? And so that is still there. And that energy is in the room. That energy is going to be in their relationship. And it'll be interesting how Lauren navigates the silent parts of her that are speaking oftentimes, but aren't saying anything. They did a beautiful native drum ceremony at the reception. Lauren really appreciated the culture, and it was like a leadership line where they were following each other, and she was really appreciating how all of the family and everyone was like involved, right? This togetherness, this family, this is something that's really important to Lauren, which makes sense regarding the passing of her mother, like wanting the connection, wanting to stay close, and wanting to be together, doing something together, right? Like that. And that's also a part of, too, the cultures that Lauren is connected to, and also Orion. Those are collective cultures. More westernized cultures, it's like individualistic, where other cultures are more like community, family. We stick together. We do as a group. This is how we are. Lauren is talking to Orion's friends and sister, and they're asking like, hey, do you have any red flags? Which I'm like, ooh, there's a part of me that really doesn't like that question, but this is what's going to happen. So it's just going to have to be okay with that. But she said the only one she knows about really is the fact that she knows there's a part of her that really seeks external validation, and she's aware of it. And so his sister asked her, like, hey, knowing this, like, how do you feel about going through this process? Do you still feel like okay? And she said, yeah, like, I know myself, and I know that I know how to handle this. And two, his sister said, well, okay, make sure you communicate. Just let Orion know, like, hey, I just need validation. That's what I need from you right now, so that he knows how to show up for you. She did say that, hey, I don't really know of any other red flags, but yeah, you let me know as you continue to learn me. And she's really wanting someone who's just as self-aware as she is. And it seems like definitely Orion has some idea of who he is as a person, how he shows up. It'll be interesting as he continues to learn more, and both of them, because this opportunity, relationships, long-term relationships, they open up your world to areas of yourself that you did not even know were there, oftentimes. So she will learn herself for sure. And so Lauren's dad is sitting with Orion, and he said, hey, he's like really excited and appreciating the fact that he's good with his hands. He knows how to fix some things. And so he's giving him the third degree. talking to him about his plans for the future, his expectations for marriage, his thoughts on marriage, and Orion saying, "Hey, I want to have this desire to, right, live on the East Coast, live in Colorado, have a house there, have a house here. Like, this is what I want to do. I like to move around." And so Dad's like, I'm really concerned about your answer, because nowhere in your answer did you say that you're going to consider your wife's wants or what she would want to do, right? And that's an issue for me, which it is an issue. It does speak to, right? So I'm curious if Orion has ever not lived with his mother. I'm curious about that. I want to know more. I don't know more, but there's definitely like this part of him that is like pushing back on what he speaks to as the matriarchy in the culture. He doesn't want people telling him what to do, right? So yeah, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to have a house here. I'm going to have a house there. We can be on the beach. We can do snowboarding. And those things sound great. And at the same time, I wonder if that's what Lauren wants. And is there a part of him that would be okay with conceding if that's not what she wants? Or would he feel like, you're controlling me just like the matriarchy in my culture, just like my mom, right? Would he have that pushback? Because he says, I don't like people telling me what to do, right? That was very clear, very vocal. This part of him did not mince words around that, right? And so Lauren's dad said, hey, like, I just want you to know you're already married, so you don't have to try to, get my approval. And Orion said, but I still want it. So now it makes me curious, and not to say that that's not natural or that's not okay, of course, right? You want the person you're marrying, their family, to be okay with you being in their life. And I'm also curious too if there's more to this, as Orion's dad isn't there, right? And I'm wondering if like, Orion is wanting a close relationship with Lauren's dad. What's there? What's happening there? And Lauren's dad will say, hey, well, we're just gonna have to wait and see around that, because I gotta keep checking you out, seeing what's happening here to know if you're gonna get my approval, which I wish more parents would be like in the MAPS world. Oftentimes they ask them a few questions and the person is giving them the answers that they want to hear, and they're like, oh, okay, this is a great person, versus let me see how your behavior lines up with your words. How are you going to treat my child, right? That's the proof is in the pudding, right? And so Dad's saying we still haven't tasted the pudding yet, so we shall see. Orion stated that he is excited. He's excited that about connecting with his wife. He's at the reception. He's talking to other people there, but he's like, man, where is she? Where is she at? Like, he's wanting to cling back to her. I'm curious if it's safety that's there, because like, when we're around other people, they ask us these uncomfortable questions and about, this process, and when we're just with each other, we don't have to worry about that. But it's nice too that they are both looking for that, because even Lauren said that she's getting some like maternal energy from her mother through Orion. She feels like that's her mom is sending that through him, right? And so I'm even curious to know more about that. That's what she said at the after party. Like, there's a very calming, nurturing energy there. And so that's good, right? Balance for her. And she's wanting to connect with him more. Like, she's looking up and trying to see where he is. And so that's a good sign, right? That's a good sign that they're having this connection thus far. Now, her friends also talk about how connected they seem, like, already. And they said, now that kiss. Now, Lauren gave more information around the kiss. She said it was welcomed, right? It was welcomed. She didn't feel like it was something that she wasn't okay with him doing. And at the same time, she felt like maybe this was a bit more than something you would do if you're meeting a stranger, right? Like, it's a deeper kiss, like, and felt like, that was a lot, right? So there's a part of her that's saying that. I wonder if she's going to speak to that, or how she's going to navigate that, right? Still not really clear on how Lauren navigates conflict, especially in this situation. She's holding things. She's got a bucket, and she's putting the things in the bucket. and wondering when they're going to come out the bucket. Of course, they ask the question, right? Physical intimacy is going to happen. Orion says, hey, it's not really something I'm looking forward to or planning to do. I just want us to continue to get to know each other. And Lauren spoke to, too, that she really feels like she was supposed to marry Orion. Like, this was supposed to happen. It was meant to be. There's a part of her that's getting that sense that this was supposed to happen. And that part could be very right. It could be meant to be. That is, it could be meant to be. Who knows? They could be meant to be that, this is a lesson that they learn to help them along their journey, or that they help each other in some way, or also that they stay together. There could be so many, right? So many things of why they're meant to be. And like I always say, we shall see. Last but certainly not least, we have Emily and Brennan. And so we're learning more about them, right? Brennan speaks to his parents' marriage, how they were married for over 30 years, and he's like, they're gonna die together, right? They're not leaving each other ever, and that's what he wants. He wants that in his marriage, right? And wants to make it work. Like, he's going to do what it takes to make it work. Like, there's this stick to itness that you can hear as he's talking about marriage. Like, we're gonna do it. We're gonna make it happen. And during the reception, Emily and Brennan discussed the bachelor and bachelorette party, how they behaved. Brennan said, no, I didn't really interact with the strippers like that. It's not my jam. And Emily said, I took body shots. I took all the shots, right? And Brennan said, okay, there's a part of him that's like, I want to make sure what you said is what I, heard. And like, before I, take this information in, like, are you saying that you took body shots off of the strippers? And she said, yes, I did. And you can see he's downloading this information, right? Downloading it. And it's very much, he said, I'm much more reserved than Emily is, which is something I felt like and spoke to last week, right? But I felt that was there when she asked, hey, are you a partier? And he's like, well, my dad drinks a lot. Not to say, oh, no, I'm not a partier. Like, that's easier to say, right? That's easier to say my dad drinks a lot versus no, I'm not a partier, right? So there's already kind of like there's a difference there. How are they going to navigate this difference? Interesting. We shall see. We see that Emily is definitely her partier, kind of like, ooh, let's do it. Let's have fun. Why not? That energy is very much like big in Emily. It's like in the driver's seat for sure. And still very forthcoming with all the honesty. And there's a part of Brennan that appreciates the honesty. He's saying that, right? Because he's like, okay, I'm getting to know her. She's being open and honest. And two, it also seems like what's also not being said is like, wow, she maybe doesn't know what to say and what not to say, right? We don't know. It maybe that's just her. And at the same time, too, like a lot of things she's saying, like how it lands. She talked about with his groomsmen about hooking up. Oh yeah, I hooked up before. And that's okay, but it's just the language, right? It's the language, and how you're connecting with people for the very first time, right? How would you communicate this to people that you are wanting them to be okay with the fact that, or be reassured, right? That's not there. Like, a part of her, there's a part of her that doesn't think about like, ooh, how is what I'm saying landing on other people? That's missing. Her friend even alluded to that later on in the episode about like, ooh, marriage, this could be really helpful because, Emily maybe needs to consider other people's feelings. Like, she hasn't had to do that, right? And we're seeing that in her conversation, right? Which is going to be huge between her and Brennan. So I'm seeing some like, ooh, I don't know how this is going to go. It seems like it's going to be potentially a little rocky between these two. So as she's discussing this with his groomsmen, right, around her relationship history, and she's like, yeah, I know it's kind of a red flag, right? A part of her says, hey, I know it's kind of a red flag that I've never been in a serious relationship. And she's like, but is it though? Because like I've had these 29 years to focus on myself, so to prepare me for this, right? So she's even torn around how she feels. And so what I'm sensing is that there's potentially insecurity that she even feels around not being in a serious relationship, right? And so these are the two parts of her, right, that look out for her in this area. Like, yeah, it's probably a red flag, right? But, or is it? Because, I've really got to focus on myself. It doesn't necessarily sound like, though, like that's what's happened, because it sounds like she was really just maybe just having fun dating guys and not really focusing on herself. That's what it kind of seems like more to me. Brennan tells her friends that he's not really worried about the fact that she hasn't been in a relationship, but he's just curious around it. He's like, he just wants to know more. Like, did they ever meet guys that she dated before? What did they think about? And they discussed like, yeah, we met them. And her one friend said like, any guy that I liked, she kind of pushed to the side. And her other friend said that nobody that she dated she felt like was worth her time, right? So that, yeah, there's a lot going on in there, right? Because I'm curious about like, is she a person that if like one thing happens, just like, right, I don't need to work through this. And we heard this a little bit from one of her friends, like, hey, she really, if something doesn't go right, as they were talking to Brennan, like if something doesn't go right, then she just ends it, right? Which is completely polar opposite to Brennan's stick to itness, make it last forever. We're committed. We're going to make it work. We're going to grow old together, right? So that's completely polar opposite from Brennan's view, and can potentially be another sore space in their relationship as they're joining together. When talking to his friends, she stated that she didn't want to settle, right? She didn't want to settle, and she didn't want to be with someone that she felt didn't deserve her. And that's the reason why she hasn't been in a committed relationship. And so his friend asked, well, if you haven't been in a committed relationship, and she's like, well, then how do you know I'm ready for marriage? Right? And so it's almost like, yeah, that's a great question. Like, that's kind of the energy I got when she asked that, or even to like, oh, I was anticipating. There's a part of her that's like anticipating this question. And she says, yeah, like, who knows if they're really ready. And at the same time, I know I'm ready, right? That's what she said. If you roll it back, that's verbatim. Like she said, who knows? Like, who really knows if you're ready for marriage? And at the same time, I know I'm ready for this. That lets us know that there's more under there. There are some potential like insecurities or questions or concerns she has about herself and how she shows up in a relationship. That's what I'm sensing. And I want to know more about what she's seen, right? Like, what relationships has she seen? What hurt has she experienced? What was her relationship like with her dad? What was her relationship like between her parents? Like, we're not getting a lot of that information as of yet to really inform how Emily's showing up right now for Brennan, or in her past relationships, or even herself, right? So we'll learn as things continue to develop this season. His friends also discussed that one of the things that Brennan is very passionate about is communication. They said when things went wrong in past relationships, that it was because communication styles weren't matched. They were bad texters. They withheld their feelings, didn't speak up, and Emily's facial expression was saying, oh, these are the areas that I don't do well in. That's what I saw, that face. It was like literally cringe emoji face. that's what was happening outside, on the outside. I don't know if she was aware of that, but that's what was happening on the outside. Her friends asked him about his relationship history. He said he felt like every relationship in the past, it was like setting him up for, the next better thing and to keep improving. And his last relationship was like 2 years, so he's had experience of relationships. He's got that, as he's relationship minded. It doesn't seem like Emily is relationship minded. Now, her friend did state that Emily said, well, the first person I'm going to be in a relationship with, that's going to be my person. And that feels like, still like there's something in that, right? We don't know, but there's something even in that statement, like, oh, the first person I'm being in a relationship with, then yeah, that's them. Um, and it's like a way to almost avoid it, like avoid being in the relationship almost, right? Like there's a part of her that is resistant to this, that is nervous, that's scared around this. And not to say there's not a good reason. Relationships are scary. They open up and make you so vulnerable to so many things. And, our heart is in it, and so it's no shade, right? No shade or judgment towards Emily. It's just to really see, like, where she is. And I'm curious if she knows, like, where she really is in this process. It doesn't seem like she is aware in this moment, for sure. In regards to this, of course, they talk about physical intimacy, and Emily is down. We hear about some handcuffs and some keys and some whips and things, and her friends like, you brought all that. And Brennan is also excited about the fact that potentially, like, this can happen. Emily saying this could be the gateway to the emotional stuff. I'm curious if this is the way that she knows how to connect, right? I'm curious if Emily only knows how to connect physically, and the emotional communication is something that is new and uncomfortable and something she avoids. It feels like that. I'm curious if that's what it is, but it feels like that as she's talking about her relationship history and how she doesn't like this part of her, that the cringe face with the communication feeling. She's like, right? So it'll be interesting to see. But both of them are excited about the wedding night and what will transpire or may not transpire. And it will be interesting. You let me know how you're feeling about these couples, what you're seeing, what you're thinking, what different parts of you are observing, and we shall see. If you are still with us, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And as always, be cool, be calm, be centered. Peace.